Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Good morning, I am Banduli Jayasekara. Yes, Faraz Shaukat Ali is here. We have to make an announcement. I am going to call him Deshamanya Faraz Shaukat Ali. My guest today is Deshamanya Faraz Shaukat Ali. Good morning, Faraz.
Good morning, Bandula. And it's nice that we've forgotten to mention it, but you are actually live on Newsline, live from the Dorset Street studios of News First. And it's Newsline in reverse because it's Bandula.
But we are not going to waste any time.
No,
because
not at all.
Time is precious.
Absolutely.
What's wrong with Gamini Marapana? What's wrong with Aloysius? Gamini Marapana, the brother of Tilak Marapana, the foreign minister. We got to mention this. He says that the Presidential Commission can't compel Aloysius to give evidence. What sort of a joke is this?
That is obviously an opinion of a lawyer, and he has made, no doubt, would have made submissions to the commissioners at the Presidential Commission, and they will take a decision. So it's his right to. You see, Bandula, it's very essential that we do not frustrate any legal avenues, because we must make sure that this process is absolutely squeaky clean and transparent.
Yeah, but he's not above the law. So this is what I'm saying. I mean, the people are watching this. They want to know.
But those are his legal, the legal avenues available to anyone. And we must however frustrating it is and causes delay, we must unfortunately give that opportunity.
I'm trying to be very diplomatic for a change.
Well, it's not diplomatic, it's being practical, because we don't want a situation later on in any appellate procedure for people to bring these up. And these are what I think what we can term unnecessary but necessary methods.
Or like you said in the Sinhala program, are they trying delaying tactics?
That's my view. That's my view.
Yeah, and I think so. And then let's see, you cannot, hoodwink the masses. People are not fools. People were fooled by your dear Prime Minister, who appointed a 3-member committee of UNP lawyers, and they gave, they said everything was clear, and now what's happening? This is what they are doing.
You see, what I'd like to say is that the media in this country have taken on this mantle because obviously the freedom of speech and so on has been re-established. The key word is that it has been re-established. It's not some new-fangled thing that was brought in by Prime Minister Wickremesinghe. In fact, what President Sirisena, the person who has the mandate, did was to ensure that this is one of the cornerstones of democracy is the right, the media freedom, the freedom of speech. These are cornerstones. What he did when he came in was to ensure that that was in place. And it's no different from any other democracy now. And that bit has buoyed the media. You see, the story, the modern story, for example, first it was written by what I would call a somewhat courageous journalist from the Sunday Times. And we, the media here at Team News First, have been enjoined at the waist by our colleagues in the rest of the media. The Isle and even the Daily News is reporting precise information from the Commission of Inquiry. All very good things. And so we mustn't forget the rest of our colleagues.
No, I mean, we haven't forgotten, we always remember, but we are, like you said, we are doing this together. Now let's move on. Now, your dear Prime Minister took about 20 minutes and made a statement in Parliament. This is about a highway robbery with Japanese connections. I want you to explain more about this to our viewers.
Before we do, I'll do that, but I'd just like to say this, remind you and our viewers that back in 2015, in March, on the 8th of March, we reported on a story that had appeared in the Sunday Times, and we expanded on that story. Right from that day, we've been pointing out that there was a conflict of interest and that Governor Mahendran must go. We were met by a statement made in Parliament about 8 or 9 days later by the Prime Minister on the bond matter. He mentioned various people who were at this meeting to raise state funds. Guess what, Bandula? Why is it that the Prime Minister, did he forget to mention the presence of the chairman of the United National Party, Mr. Malik Samarawickrama? He was present at that meeting. Why did he leave him out?
Maybe he thought forgetting is a blessing.
Perhaps. But, you know, when you do these things, you need to do it properly. And so back again, today, thereafter, 2015 March, we had a statement from the Prime Minister. Today we know where this bond matter has happened, bond gate, where it is today.
Bond scam.
It's the bond scam, but we've labelled it bond gate because, like Watergate, you know, this is a huge... Remember that thanks to Watergate, the most powerful man on earth, Richard M. Nixon, was forced to resign under threat of impeachment. And that's because he lied about what happened, about the break-in at the Democratic Party headquarters.
But Faraz, now I have a question. So the Prime Minister,
Yes.
your dear Prime Minister, he appointed this committee, right, of 3 lawyers.
Yes.
I mean, UN, they say UN.
Well, yeah.
So, but what happens now? What happened to that? Nobody's talking about that. They cleared it, right?
Well,
they cleared it,
sort
but
of. That's
nobody's
right.
taking any action.
That's right. There's no action.
And now the Presidential Commission is coming out with the truth. So what are they going to do to these lawyers?
That's a good point. But first of all, let's wait for the report from the Presidential Commission inquiry. They're doing a grand job. And if the members of the public, if you really want to know where your tax monies are being spent, and one aspect of it anyway, is take a trip down to Halsdorf. All you need is your national ID card and you can get in and you can follow the procedures. You will see how well Dapula de Oliveira and Mr. Kodagoda are going through and sifting through all the information.
And the commissioners, the judges.
And the commissioners.
For us,
you can see your tax money.
now let's move on from the great train robbery to the great highway robbery. Can you take us through?
Well, again, we made a revelation. Once again, we must point out that this had been written in the press, in the print media before, but we had a bit of additional information contained in this voluminous file that I have here.
We get files all the time from the public, the people. They send us files with
Please send
information.
it. Please whistle blow as loud as you can, because it's completely anonymous, and we will assure the confidentiality and protect your identity. But if you have any information, let us know.
Let's take this because it's people's money.
Now the statement in Parliament. The Prime Minister came in and he pointed out that the Cabinet-appointed negotiating committee had saved 25 billion. And the Prime Minister maintained that this group, but he didn't mention us directly, by the way, indirectly.
No, he did later. He said Maharajas, he said, okay, I'll say Sirasa.
Yes,
he said Sirasa.
That's right, he did. In the end, he did say Sirasa.
Yeah. So that means he's watching us very well.
Well, that's
Thank
good.
you.
The point is, once again, I do wish that the Prime Minister was more precise, because then we wouldn't need to waste this valuable airtime on trying to say what he should have said. Now then, why is it that the Prime Minister forgot, or whatever, selectively maybe, but why is it that he didn't talk about our real concern? Our real concern was not this 25 billion saving by the CANC. It was the fact that the winning bidder in this process, a company called Taisei Corporation, were being forced to do a consortium with the failed bidder Fujita Corporation. That's the problem. That is a complete abuse of the national procurement guidelines. Never before in the history of this country's procurement processes has such an event happened, or is about to happen, because it hasn't happened yet. Now, that's the problem. Why doesn't the Prime Minister talk about that? Why do you want... The Prime Minister himself said, oh, this is a rather complicated terrain, you know, from Colombo down up to the hills. Yeah, we agree. They've got hills and, you know, all sorts of things. So I suppose it's more expensive than the flat, almost flat, Southern Expressway. Yeah, right, we agree. then why don't you be precise? Why are you not speaking about Mr. Kirialle's attempt to get the winning bidder into a consortium with the failed bidder? Why? What is the speciality that this failed company has? They've failed on experience.
So you think they approach Lakshman Kirialla?
Well, Bandula, something amiss has happened. We'd like to know why. What is so special about this company that they are trying to bring them in through the back door? And let me explain. Whilst this bidding process was going on, 4 companies was invited to bid. One company, Pentaocean, is a marine construction company. Okay? The other one, Wakachuki, is specialist in bridge building.
But these are all Japanese companies.
Yes.
With Sri Lankan representatives here.
Well, they don't need to, but we presume that they are. And there were just really 2 responsive bids. One was from Fujita Corporation and one was from Taisei. Now then, the cabinet appointed negotiating committee and the project committee, who are, they're made up of professionals. They went through this thing and they didn't qualify Fujita. They didn't have the necessary experience. There were key areas in which they didn't have. There were 8 items, they only had 3. In the last 5 years, they hadn't done a contract worth at least $600 million. The highest they had done was $91 million. But in 1989, they did a project in Iraq, which was around $750 million. But that was in 1989. Our engineers want current experience done in the last 5 years. So on very legitimate grounds, they disqualified them. And we have a letter from none other than His Excellency the Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka.
We showed it on our program.
At the request of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, he writes and conveys the official Japanese position, the official Japanese government's position, and that is that the Japanese government was in no position to take issue with the lawful legal tender procedure adopted by the government of Sri Lanka, including on the Section 3 of the Highway Central Expressway.
So why did Kirialla try to go beyond that?
I have no idea, and that is why I would have at least out of a need to be transparent or out of an abundance of caution, the Prime Minister ought to have mentioned as to why they are trying to bring in a failed bidder. Now, they say that at the strong recommendation of the government of Japan, well, that's absolute tosh. There is no strong recommendation of the government of Japan. Some advisor to the government of Japan writes a letter to the Minister Kirialla to say that Fujita Corporation is experienced and so on, and it's a letter of reference about Fujita. And he says, if you were to give them consideration, the government of Japan will be appreciative. But we have the ambassador of Japan who says that the government of Japan has no claims or concerns about the legal and lawful tender procedure adopted by the government, including for this section of the highway. Now then, why doesn't the Prime Minister explain that to us? Why? We have nothing. Then something else happens, Bandula. Whilst this bidding process is going on, Lakshman Kirialla presents another cabinet paper in December 2016 and gets it passed, saying that there is another offer from a group called Daiwa Houses Group stroke Fujita. Well, let me give clarity. Daiwa is the holding company of Fujita. So it's one and the same. So they send a bid. It's 3 billion less than what Fujita have bid in the competitive bidding process, which was ongoing at the time. They bid 147 billion. Kirialla writes a letter to a recommendation to the cabinet and says, these are 3 billion cheaper. Let's cancel the competitive bidding process. Bandula, I put it to you, I ask you, do you think it sounds logical? We have an open, competitive bidding process ongoing. And the Minister of Highways puts forward the cabinet paper and gets it passed to cancel the ongoing tender process.
There are a few things here for us. Okay, we smell something very fishy here.
Yes.
And then the cabinet also shouldn't have approved it because they haven't checked it, right? And then
they send it also for they pass it, but send it to the Minister of Finance at the time, Ravi Karunanayake.
So anyway, so they also approved it, and then now I think Kirial is reported. I saw it in the Daily Mirror. He's got so many advisors, about 65 advisors. So he must be, full of advisors.
Well, and here's the other point.
This is the problem.
After they pass that cabinet paper, in which they seek to annul the process of an ongoing separate process, to annul it, to cancel it, Lakshman Kirialla has a meeting. Now you must remember that the cabinet, there are checks and balances in place. That's why we have a cabinet appointed negotiating committee to negotiate with bidders to get the optimum benefit for the country. We have a project committee staffed by professionals to look at the technical aspects. There is no role for the minister in charge of anything, let alone the highways, to have a meeting and to negotiate with bidders. And that is precisely what happened. He has a meeting with the representatives of Taise and the representatives of Fujita. All right? And in the presence of the minister's legal advisor, or minister's advisor. There is no ministry secretary. And he is negotiating money.
The ministry secretary should have been there.
He is negotiating, he's acting what we would call in legal terms ultra vires, above the remit that is granted to you. Right? Now, he's acting ultra vires. And he's having a meeting with these bidders which has no basis, because that the negotiations must be carried out by the CANC, the Cabinet Approved Negotiating Committee. And here's the gundu in this whole thing. And if our producer will now play the slide that we prepared this morning, we will see that at this meeting there was the presence of two unexplained companies, and who apparently have nothing to do with this project. One is a company called Punji Lloyd, and the other is a company called Metrika Relocations.
They're all from Japan.
No, they're not. Punji Lloyd Limited is a company in crisis in India, represented by Dr. Tariq Alam, the Executive Vice President of Punji Lloyd Limited. And the other company is Metrika Relocations Plus, represented by one R.T. Lokeshwaran. Now, excuse me, what on earth are they doing at a meeting with Taise and Fujita? What is their standing? Who are these people? Why are they there? Why is Kirialla having this meeting?
No, people are puzzled. These companies, they sounds like, companies from Asterix comics. I'm sorry to say this. The way, so there is definitely something fishy. And what's the, see, like the bond scam, there is something, there people have been hoodwinked.
Mr. Kirialla is completely out of order. That's what I have to say. Who does he think he is? He is just an elected representative of the people who's supposed to have responsibility and represent the Ministry of Highways. He's having a meeting completely outside of the tender procedure. It is so surprising that even the bidders are questioning the legality of this meeting, because the representative of Fujita is saying that he is surprised, he's confused, because Fujita have been disqualified by the CANC. And the representative of Taise says, are you sure that this is all within the bidding process? And who answers this very valid question? The advisor to Mr. Kirialla, Wan Chaminde. Now, excuse me, these guys they are complete departure from tender procedure. Mr. Kirialla has no leg to stand on.
Mr. Shaukat Ali, you think the dear Prime Minister has been misled by Kirialla?
I think we should leave the Prime Minister out of this, because this is a very focused matter. Mr. Kirialla is supplying the cabinet paper. He's putting it through. He's doing everything with his.
Why?
But why? That is the question, Bundle. It is not that we are taking issue with 25 billion. No. We have another view.
Is he trying to save money, or is he trying to play the country out, play the people out?
Well, something is terribly amiss. We would like to have details. And that's why I say that just like the bond, just like Bondgate, we need a presidential commission to look into what I would call expressway gate or express gate. That's what we need. We need another presidential commission, because at the end of the day, the people of this country are completely fed up by people who are trying to govern this nation and who are engulfed by one controversy to another. And these controversies are not made at Sirasa. They are not made here. They are made by journalists and the people of this country whose conscience has been aroused. They're not going to sit down here and take it for granted that these guys, all of them, can rob this country. We are all suffering because of what happened by some 30-year-old little pup out there who decided to rob the central bank and to play the system. He didn't do it on his own, Bandula. He did it with some help. And we want this presidential commission because we need to get to the bottom of this. There is no other way.
This is what we call friends with benefits. But for us coming back, now there has to be transparency. This is the Yahapalana government, Yahapalana in quotes. But can't anybody, we together, any lawyers, whether Hemant or Gomin, go and, there's public interest petitions. Can't they go to courts and file action and say, ask for these questions? Because they are trying to cheat the masses.
You've been a representative of this country and you've travelled around. Tell me, Bandura, please tell me, one instance where in a robust democracy, a country that's practicing democracy, tell me one instance where businessmen are getting named and shamed in Parliament. All sorts of accusations are being thrown and hurled at them with parliamentary privilege. And these businessmen can't do jack about it. Is that right? Have you heard of David Cameron taking apart some businessmen in Britain?
What I have to tell our viewers is just because your dear Prime Minister belongs to the International Democratic Union, he is not David Cameron. He thinks failures are the pillars of success, and maybe that's why he's the Prime Minister today.
Well, like you say, I want to place the Prime Minister on the back burner here, because this issue...
No, what I'm trying to say for us is he is defending, so he has to, question Kirialla. He can't just come and defend and just read from a piece of paper. He can't do that.
It would be far better if he asks Mr. Kirialla why it is that he sought the annulling of a competitive bidding process. While it was going on, he entertains an unsolicited bid by Diver Group, which is the holding company of Fujita. So it's Fujita. Why they entertained a bid from an unsolicited bid from Fujita for 3 billion less. And the explanation that the Minister Kirialla says is that because it's cheaper, let's negotiate with them. Hello, that's why we have a CANC. Or have you missed this very valid point? The CANC's only role is to negotiate the best terms for this country. That's it. There's no other reason.
But I must explain to our viewers, as Faraz said it earlier, this is nothing to do with SLFP, UNP, JVP or TNA. We are talking about the masses. There is nothing to do with party politics here.
Exactly.
Because people are robbing, not people, these government people, the ministers are robbing people's money, because that has to be cleared. Because sometimes when we point this out, they say, okay, you're saying something to the Prime Minister or the Cabinet. They have to accept responsibility. Do you agree? So that has to be cleared.
I agree. It's very sad that they're trying to mask, with this 25 billion profit, they're trying to mask the real problem. And the real problem and the real fraud is this abuse on departure of tender procedure. And that is by trying to bring to form a consortium between the winning bidder and the failed bidder. What on earth is going on? Why do we need that? Do you know what, Banana? I think we need to say it's time Lakshman Kiriyala, go home.
Yeah, so like Vijaydas, Rajapaksa, Lakshman Kiriyala also can go home. They can, I'm sure the backbenchers can bring a no confidence motion.
There is a serious and significant departure from Mr. Kiriyala. Why doesn't he explain who on earth Punji Lloyd is? Why doesn't he explain who on earth this other company is? This Relocations Plus, Metrika Relocations Plus, Mr. Lokeshwaran and Dr. Tariq Alam. What was their standing in this meeting which shouldn't have been held anyway? Tell us, be upfront and open.
He can come on the program, he can speak to us, we are open to it.
Of course we are,
Yeah, but for us, again, this is like the bond scam. They denied, they continually denied, and now the truth is coming.
You know, in the past, we had a move in which the government then relied on the use of companies owned by the state, but formed under the Companies Act. And so Mahinda Rajapaksa, there's a cabinet paper there that says that companies that are formed in that way under the Companies Act, they don't have to call tenders. And that set the stage up. And I personally believe that if Sri Lankan Airlines and me in Lanka and so on were accountable to the Auditor General at the time, and if they were not under the Companies Act, then the audit process would have been far easier and more transparent, and various matters would have come to the fore. Unfortunately, because of the way it was structured, that didn't happen, but of course the 19th Amendment now addresses that issue. But nevertheless, even though the 19th Amendment addresses this, half of these problems wouldn't have happened if the National Audit Bill was in play now, and also the National Procurement Commission, formed by the 19th Amendment, were active today. At least some of these frauds would have been lessened. And I think these politicians, our legislators, owe it to the people of this country to get those things in place right away. But perhaps they're waiting till all the deals are done, all the big ones are done, to get it in place.
Thank you very much for us, but we have to tell our viewers, we report, you decide, and we tell Kiriyala, bring it on.
I say to Mr. Kiriyala, I don't know about your political game, but by your actions in this particular instance, if you have any sense of pride, you must resign, you must go home.
Thank you very much for us, and again I tell the viewers, keep the pressure on, because it's your money that they are pocketing it out. Have a nice day.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz.